Guys, I'm here to tell you that vehicle behind me, which is a 2016 Nissan Leaf S, will eventually become a badass pickup truck. Let me explain. I needed a vehicle to go back and forth from Denver to Boulder that was super cheap, super easy, super reliable. And at the same time, eventually I want to get a project truck to replace my beloved Suzuki, which has gone away. And this is what I wound up with. And I'm going to tell you about my buying experience, a little bit of buyer's remorse, but also a lot of the positives with this vehicle, because you'd be surprised how cool a used electric vehicle can be. Okay, so this is what I did. Now, in the past, when I bought my wife a Mini Cooper Countryman, I went to Carvana. This time I went to Carmax. I was curious about the difference, and there's a lot of them. These are two very different companies, even though they look the same online. So this is what happened. On Carmax, you can go and select a vehicle. They have a much better selection, in my mind, than Carvana. And the prices were really reasonable. This car cost me about $9,500. That's pretty much for everything. And it has the 30 kilowatt hour battery, which is the bigger battery, which they had available in 2016. And that's what I wanted, because I wanted about 100 miles range. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get that, because there is degradation, so it's closer to 90 miles. I can deal with that. The distance between Boulder and my house is around 40-ish miles, so in an emergency I could probably go both ways on one charge. But fortunately we have a charger here. Going back to the sale. Carmax is not the same as Carvana. Carvana, I did almost everything. About 95% of all the paperwork was done online, and all I had to do was sign a couple things and I was done. At Carmax, it's much more of like a dealership, even though you can get delivery in certain cases. So you go to a dealership to get the vehicle after it's delivered. This vehicle actually started life in California and then moved on to Nevada and then was shipped over here to Colorado. So, which one was better? Better selection at Carmax, faster, more efficient checkout over at Carvana. Mike, my buddy over at Carmax, was awesome. So were all the people there. They were very nice. And even though we're in the middle of COVID, we were really good about distancing. So even though I had to go into a dealership and test drive the car, it worked out fine. They were very clean. Now, you also, just like Carvana, have 7 days to decide whether or not you want to keep the car. You can return it, no questions asked, as long as the car is not damaged, and you can either get a refund or get another vehicle roughly around the same price. If I had to choose between the two of them, if I needed to find a car with a wider spread in terms of selection, Carmax. If I wanted to completely avoid hanging out near a dealership, I could probably go Carvana. There you go. Now what about the car? Why did I buy an electric car? Of all things, me. It's cheap, super cheap. This car has 40,000 miles on it, and yeah, 90 miles-ish range, which is not the best, although I do hear that if I take it into Nissan, they have a software fix that can actually give it a little bit more range. The battery still holds power, more power than it's actually showing on the gauge. For a vehicle in this class that has this low mileage, that doesn't require really any major maintenance, this thing is a major deal. I did the math, and for a regular 4-cylinder car, manual transmission, which is probably what I'd normally get, I would spend a couple $1,000s a year on gas, and I'd have to spend about $1,000 a year on overall maintenance, oil changes, the basics, and then possibly some maintenance because they're used, right? I've been dealing with that with my Nissan Pathfinder, which I love, by the way, and I still have. But this car doesn't require any of that, or very little of it. Tire rotations, occasionally checking the brakes. These cars are rock solid. As a matter of fact, other than battery degradation, the Nissan Leafs are a really solid car. So, basically wanted something super cheap I could drive back and forth to work for a couple years. And the reason why is because I want to buy myself a project vehicle. And my wife said, sure, you can do that as long as you get a really cheap, inexpensive driver that you could share with your daughter. So, let's talk about the bad things. All right, so let's talk about some of the negatives because, well, the tires They're called brand new tires according to Carmax, and they are a brand I don't know. But the bottom line is that cheap tires are cheap tires. I would obviously rather Pirellis or Goodyears or something like that, but so be it. You kind of get what you pay for. This is a very inexpensive car. They put on very expensive new tires. At least they put on new tires, right? And I could always switch them out, I suppose. The good news is this tire size is very inexpensive. So, let's talk about a couple other things. Obviously, you saw those hubcaps that came with the car. I hate them. I'll eventually pull them off and either just run with the rims or maybe even paint the rims. Thinking about rims, I mean wheels, of course. I was thinking about white or purple, something cool. Alright, so let's talk about some of the actual negatives here, other than battery range, which obviously is an issue. It's not exactly what I would call high performing. Going around corners is a little bit on the slow side, and it's a little bit tippy. It has a pretty good ride, but there is some ride noise coming from both the tires and the mirrors. And the other thing is that it's a Nissan Leaf that looks like a grouper fish. From the side, it actually, look up grouper fish, it actually has the same exact profile. But you know what? I really like the fact that I don't have to go to a gas station. Now, I've had it for a couple days and I've filled it up full of electricity and I've calculated the price. And basically to fill up and get about 90 miles range cost me around $1. And that was during high draw hours. So eventually I'll be using a fast charger, but I do warn you that I've been told that if you use the fast charger too often, even the TFLnow system, that you can actually create more degradation faster over time. So keep that in mind. So there's two different types of chargers. Now, bear in mind that the 2016 is sort of a unique year because they put in the larger battery, which this one has, as an option. If you get the S24, that's the 24 kilowatt hour battery. That's the smaller one. This one has the 30 kilowatt hour battery, which right now doesn't make much of a difference because it's lost some of its charge. The good news is it does have fast charging. That's the old TFLnow system, and it has the regular charger, of course, as well. It's awesome to have this car pull up to a level 2 charger and get 40 miles in 20 minutes, 30 minutes. That's really cool. What's cooler is going up to a fast charger when you really need it and being able to pop it in and get 80% of your charge in no time. Also, my wife thinks I'm green, which I'm not, which is cool. You get a little bit more than 100 horsepower out of this thing. It's not very torquey compared to a lot of electric cars. I know that. And it's just fast enough to keep up with traffic. That's the truth. But here's the interesting part. Look at the way they set up the motor. This is actually kind of unique because, first of all, a lot of people who do electric vehicles will have the electric motors powering the rear wheels or all the wheels. In this case, just the front wheels. And the way they design this is just like a regular front-wheel drive car, one with a gas engine. So all of the components, including the drivetrain, they all sit right here. So it makes it a lot easier to build a car like this. All the components are modular, boom, they pop right in. Roman is not into that. He likes the idea of rear-wheel drive cars. I get it. Our i3 has rear drive, and our little Lemon smart car, rear drive. And that's because it's usually a very compact setup. This is very different. I don't know. I find that living in snow country, having all the weight over the front axle and having the front wheels pull you through snow is a little bit better than rear drive, as much as I love rear drive for performance. All in all, I bought a $9,500 car that won't cost me very much per year to run. And a lot of people who right now are really against big oil are going to love me. Simply don't know that I'll have something in my driveway that'll have a fat, burly V8 or something like that in it, and I'm going to be building that up over time. But the cool thing is having an electric car allows you to do that. You can do that guilt-free, drive back and forth to work, and have your badass car at home. And to me, that is one of the biggest attributes to buying a simple, used electric car. Thanks guys for joining me for the Fast Lane Car. This is Nathan. I'll see you next time.